custody. He's due here at court later today after one of music's most influential entrepreneurs was indicted on federal charges. This morning, hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs is under arrest. Federal agents with Homeland Security investigations taking him into custody at a hotel in Midtown Manhattan following a nearly year-long investigation into human trafficking. Diddy's attorney says we are disappointed with the decision to pursue what we believe is an unjust prosecution. Federal prosecutors say the charges will be unsealed this morning, but Diddy has been under criminal investigation since his former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, accused him in a civil lawsuit of sexual and physical abuse. CNN obtained this disturbing hotel surveillance video from 2016, purportedly showing Combs attacking her, throwing her to the ground, kicking her, and trying to drag her away. The lawsuit was settled with no admission of wrongdoing. Combs issuing an apology video.
I mean, I hit rock bottom, but I make no excuses. My behavior on that video is inexcusable.
What up, Dope Biz Nation? It's your boy Tay Biz, and we are here to discuss and to look at the Diddy arrest that happened late last night, early this morning, and the fact that he is being indicted on 3 counts. All right, and we're going to go ahead and talk about those counts in detail. As you can see, we have the sealed indictment, and we're going to go ahead and read a little bit of it. And also, we're going to look at the video of Mr. Damian Williams, who is the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York City. He's going to go ahead and unleash and release the actual unsealed portion of this. And also, we're going to look at the bond proposal that Diddy and his defense team has rendered to the state. So let's look at this for a minute, man. Let's go ahead and check it out, man. Go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and go ahead and show your boy some love. Let's go. All right, so we have count 1 is the Racketeering Conspiracy. It says right here that the grand jury charges for decades Sean Combs, aka Puff Daddy, aka P. Diddy, aka Diddy, aka PD, aka Love. Wow. The defendant abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. To do so, Combs relied on the employees, resources, and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other crimes, sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. Physical abuse by Sean Combs, the defendant, was recurrent and widely known on numerous occasions from at least in or about 2009 and continuing for years. Combs assaulted women by, among other things, striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects at, and kicking them. These assaults were at times witnessed by others and included one instance at a Los Angeles hotel in or about March 2016, which was captured on video and later publicly reported. This is the Cassie video that came out and that was leaked out earlier this year, I believe. And, you know, this is where he said he hit rock bottom and he was going through a lot of stuff or whatever the case may be. But we saw a video, man, that you do this all the time. And also, don't forget, he bribed and paid to get that video hidden by somebody from the security staff of that hotel. And that hotel no longer exists, by the way. But for some reason, somehow, some way, that video got leaked. So that's what they're referring to right there. All right, let's go. It says here that the Combs enterprise constituted an ongoing organization whose members function as a continuing unit for a common purpose of achieving the objects of the Combs enterprise. The Combs enterprise was engaged in and its activities affected interstate and foreign commerce. The Combs enterprise operated in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere. At all times relevant to this indictment, Sean Combs, the defendant, was the leader of the Combs enterprise. Sean Combs, the defendant, and others known and unknown participated in unlawful and other activities related to the conduct of the Combs enterprise's affairs. These individuals included certain Combs business employees, such as members of Combs security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and high-ranking supervisors, as well as other close associates of Combs. You best believe other people about to go down with this dude, right? Purposes of Combs enterprise. Operating a global business in the media, entertainment, and lifestyle industries, including, among other things, record labels, a recording studio, an apparel line, an alcoholic spirits business, a marketing agency, and a television network and media company. You know about Revolt TV. I believe he sold Revolt TV, and I still do not know to this day who actually purchased Revolt TV, but it is an unknown source. It is an unknown source that owns now Revolt TV. So some people were saying it was Tyler Perry, some people were saying other people's names, but from my understanding, what I checked when I was fact checking it, I believe it's somebody from a foreign territory. So I'm not too sure yet. Don't quote that as Bible. Don't quote that as scripture. I'm just saying I'm not really sure, but that television network company, that's a wrap. Okay, we're gonna look at count 2 of this indictment, and I know I'm skipping through a little bit, but that's okay because we're going to actually see the actual release in a minute. Count 2 is the sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. Says here is from at least in or about 2009 up to and including in or about 2018 in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere. Sean Combs, the defendant, in and affecting interstate and foreign commerce, knowingly recruited, enticed, harbored, transported. Now, see, there you go right here. Transported is a key word. That is a very triggering word. The reason why is because now we're talking about the actual definition of trafficking, crossing state lines, crossing this over the overseas or whatever the case may be. Now you're getting into the nitty gritty of what trafficking really is. It says transported, provided, obtained, advertised, maintained, patronized, and solicited by any means a person knowing and in reckless disregard of the fact that that means of force, threats of force, fraud, and coercion as described in Title 18, United States Code Section 1591E2, and any combination of such means would be used to cause the person to engage in a commercial sex act and attempted, aided, and abetted, and willfully caused the same to wit. Combs recruited, enticed, harbored, transported, and maintained a person, victim 1, and attempted, aided, and abetted, and willfully caused victim 1 to engage in commercial sex acts, knowing and in reckless disregard of the fact that victim 1 was engaging in commercial sex acts as a result of force, fraud, and coercion. So a lot of people, you know what coercion is. That's the same thing that's going on with the YSL trial. You know what I'm saying? It's like some of these witnesses are being coerced. You know, they're not actually guilty of everything that's in the plea deal. They're not actually guilty of every single thing that's being written out or reported. But at the same time, they're making people take plea deals and things of that nature and coercing them and putting extra time, 15 years probation here. And if you don't do this particularly correct, or if you lie on the stand, you get 35, you're facing 35 years in prison. And even though you already did time for something else and you already got charged for something else, we're going to include it in this particular case. You know, all these type of coercive moves that they make. You know what I'm saying? So that is what's happening in this indictment as well. It's like they're saying that Combs was coercing as well, fraudulently. You know what I mean? Some people were unaware that they were trafficking, if you will. So that's the nature of this particular count as well. Here we go. Count 3. Transportation to engage in prostitution from at least in or about 2009 up to and including in or about 2024 in the Southern District of New York and elsewhere. Mr. Combs, the defendant, knowingly transported an individual in interstate and foreign commerce with intent that the individual engage in prostitution and attempted, aided, and abetted, and willfully caused the same to it. Combs transported, aided, and abetted, and willfully caused the transportation of female victims and commercial sex workers in interstate and foreign commerce on multiple occasions with the intent that they engage in prostitution. So here it is right here, man. You see what's going on. You see the fact that this is another thing, the transportation thing, that's what makes this whole thing messed up as well, including that, and makes it bigger than what it is. So definitely this is a RICO, particularly type of RICO situation here. And so we're going to go ahead and look at actually Damian Williams, who is the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York City, or the Southern District of New York State, excuse me. He's going to actually unpack this whole entire thing. Let's take a look.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Damian Williams, and I'm the U.S. Attorney here in the Southern District of New York. Today, I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution. The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice. Let me say a little bit more about the charges. The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs, and that Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair. On one occasion in March of 2016, that conduct was captured on video and later reported in the media. Specifically, Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a victim in a Los Angeles hotel when the victim was attempting to flee. As alleged, these assaults often resulted in injuries to the victims, which took days or weeks to heal. In addition to the violence, the indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. And the indictment alleges that he maintained control over the victims in several ways, including by giving them drugs, by giving and threatening to take away financial support or housing, by promising them career opportunities, by monitoring their whereabouts, and even by dictating their physical appearance. Because of all of this, the indictment alleges that the victims did not believe they could refuse Combs without risking their security or facing more abuse. The indictment also alleges other acts of violence undertaken by Combs and others, including violence against witnesses to his abuse, kidnapping, and arson. The indictment alleges that on more than one occasion, Combs carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten victims and witnesses. Now, Combs did not do this all on his own. As I mentioned, Combs has been charged with RICO conspiracy. He used his business and employees of that business and other close associates to get his way. Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff. The indictment alleges that those individuals facilitated the freak-offs. They booked the hotel rooms and stocked them with the supplies, including drugs, baby oil, personal lubricant, extra linens, and lighting. When the hotel rooms got damaged, they helped clean it up. They arranged for victims and commercial sex workers to travel for the freak-offs, and they delivered large quantities of cash to Combs to pay for the commercial sex workers. The indictment also alleges that they helped Combs cover up his crimes. During the March 2016 incident at the LA hotel that I mentioned earlier, a member of the hotel security staff intervened, and Combs attempted to bribe the staff member with a stack of cash to make sure that what happened was kept quiet. And as the indictment alleges, in late 2023, after public allegations were made about Combs's crimes, he and others pressured witnesses and victims to stay silent, including by making phone calls to witnesses and victims and giving them a false narrative of what they had experienced. And as alleged, Combs used others to help conceal his abuse by monitoring and preventing victims from leaving a location in order to hide their injuries, or by locating and contacting a victim who had attempted to flee. As part of this investigation, in March of this year, special agents from HSI executed search warrants at Combs's residences in Miami and Los Angeles. They also executed a warrant for Combs's electronic devices. During those searches, agents seized evidence of the crimes charged in this indictment. They seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 defaced AR-15s and a large capacity drum magazine. They also seized evidence of the freak-offs, electronic devices that contain images and videos of the freak-offs with multiple victims. And they seized cases and cases of the kinds of personal lubricant and baby oil that Combs' staff allegedly used to stock hotel rooms for the freak-offs, more than 1,000 bottles altogether. Here are some of the items that we recovered during the searches. As you can see here, this is a drum magazine, large capacity, and it contains, I believe, 59 rounds. I mentioned as well, we recovered 3 AR-15s. This is a close-up shot of one of the AR-15s, and you can see right here, the serial number has been thoroughly defaced. Another picture of more ammunition and parts of 2 AR-15s right there. Now, I want to be clear about 2 things. First, this office is determined to investigate and prosecute anyone who engages in sex trafficking, no matter how powerful or wealthy or famous you may be. No one should doubt our commitment on that. A year ago, Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City. Today, he's been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York. Second, we are not done. This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly. Anyone with information can call 1-877-4-HSI-TIP. I want to express my deep appreciation for the victims and witnesses who have used their voices and helped bring this criminal conduct to light. We would not be here without them. I also want to thank the dedicated case agents on the HSI Trafficking in Person Squad in New York. They have been with us since day one and have worked tirelessly on this investigation. They will continue to be invaluable partners to us. I also want to thank the incredible agents and analysts from SCNY who have also provided tremendous assistance on this case. I'm deeply grateful for their continued work. And finally, I want to thank the outstanding career prosecutors from SCNY who are handling this case. Meredith Foster, Emily Johnson, Chrissy Slavic, Madison Smeisler, and Mitzi Steiner, and their supervisors, Jamie Backleeper and Jacqueline Kelly. They are members of the Civil Rights Unit in our criminal division. We created the Civil Rights Unit when I became U.S. Attorney. I'm deeply proud of their work on this and so many other cases. I'll now take some questions.
Eric Katursky, ABC.
Thanks, Nick. Damian, thanks. The indictment describes aggressive, open, violent, hedonistic abuse that you say was recurrent and widely known. Why did it take law enforcement so long to intervene? How many women were victimized by Sean Combs, and how many others were involved?
Look, our investigation is ongoing. We are committed to bringing justice to everyone who's been victimized by the defendant. I can't tell you why it took so long. I think the better focus is on the fact that we are here today. And we are committed to making sure that justice is done. Next question.
Thank you. Julia Ainsley, NBC.
Thank you for doing this. You said we are not done and that Combs did not do this alone. Do you foresee that there could be other charges related to this case?
I'm not taking anything off the table.
Janet Fisher, Newsday.
What's the difference between the sex trafficking and promoting travel for the purpose of prostitution?
Well, there are different crimes with different elements. I don't think we should get into the nitty-gritty of the legal discussion right now, but the sex trafficking, we believe, they're all serious offenses, but the sex trafficking conduct carries some significant penalties, and we are gratified that we were able to bring that charge.
One more coercive than the other?
I'm not going to be able to get into that, but you can look it up, and yes, sex trafficking, especially when it involves coercion or force, is a very serious crime, and it carries significant penalties.
Good afternoon, Darla Miles, ABC7 New York. Thank you for this press conference and for the details. 2 questions. In context of this indictment and the information that was presented to the grand jury, are you able to clarify the number of victims? It's mentioned plural in the indictment, but can you specify the number of victims just for this particular indictment? And secondly, can you provide details about the alleged arson?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to provide either. The number of victims, you are correct. We are intentional in saying multiple. The details of the arson incident are limited to what we have in the indictment and also the detention letter that we filed, which contains more details than the indictment does at various points. But we don't have anything more beyond that. Next question.
Lynn Tran, CNN.
Are any of his accomplices or associates under investigation? And additionally, could he face any more charges?
So the investigation is ongoing. That means both as to him and to anyone else who we believe committed the crime with him. Next question.
Juliet Papa.
Hi, good morning from 1010 Wins. Any indication that some of the women or victims here were imprisoned in his residences, and did he have locations where he kept them, and were not allowed to leave? And also, he's indicted here, although there were searches and raids in LA, Miami. Why in New York?
Well, I'm biased. I'm the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York. I think that we have an outstanding track record of bringing some of the most impactful, sprawling, complex, difficult sex trafficking, human trafficking, labor trafficking, you name it. The Southern District of New York can do it, and so we're very proud of that. And so the scope and complexity of this investigation isn't something that we ran from. It's something that we embrace, and we will continue to do that. As to your question about whether he imprisoned anyone, all I can say is that, I mentioned this March 2016 incident where something was caught on video where a victim was attempting to flee, and there was violence that was associated with it. That was at a hotel.
Matthew Lee, Inner City Press.
Thanks a lot. Does your office intend to seek remand, or are you reaching a bail package? And if you're willing, how would you contrast this with the R. Kelly case in EDNY in terms of the elements? Thanks.
So we will be seeking detention. We have filed a letter laying out our reasoning for seeking pretrial detention. I'm not going to be able to expand beyond what's in the letter, but it contains all of the reasoning, and it contains the law as well. There is a presumption of detention in a case like this, and we think that's warranted.
John Anise, New York Daily News.
Thank you. I was hoping to get some more detail about the searches of his residence, the guns, the cases of lubricant, and the videos. Where were they found amongst his residents? Were they all scattered around the houses in one place? I kind of wanted to just get a better picture of how that stuff was found.
Well, look, I think that some of the details that you're seeking are in the detention letter. So, for instance, some of the AR-15s. 2 of the 3 defaced AR-15s were found in his bedroom closet in Miami, broken down into parts along with magazines with ammunition loaded in them. So some of that detail is in the detention letter. Beyond that, I'm not going to be able to get into where other items were stored.
Ben Kochman, Post.
Hey, thanks for doing this. Your office was the office that had been prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein before he died in custody. I have not read your detention memo yet. It's the first thing I'm going to do after this ends. But does the memo address, or is your office concerned with Combs's safety in custody, given what happened with Epstein?
So we are concerned with anyone's safety whenever they are detained prior to trial. It's part of our obligations to keep people safe as well. It's part of the criminal justice system. So, but I do not draw any sort of connection between Jeffrey Epstein's suicide and what may or may not happen to any other defendant while they are detained pre-trial. And of course, the decision whether to detain the defendant will be up to a judge. Our position is that pretrial detention is warranted under the law and based on the facts of this case. And I'll leave it at that.
Are some of the prosecutors on this case some of the same prosecutors that had been handling that or that worked on the Maxwell case?
So I'm not going to get into the staffing. I will say that this team, this group of AUSAs, this incredible group has been working on this case around the clock, and they've had their hands full. Next question.
Gus Rosendale, NBC News.
Good morning, sir. Combs' attorney said that his client has been cooperative with investigators. He said that this morning. I was wondering if you would have a reaction to that.
Let me just say this. I think that generally and with increasing frequency, the word cooperative or cooperating has taken on tremendous elasticity, and it no longer really bears any relation to what the word means when we use it in a very specific context. So responding to lawful process and the like does not qualify as cooperation when we use that term here.
Mike Sisak, AP.
Thanks. To that end, was there any discussion of Mr. Combs surrendering? I understand he was taken into custody at a hotel in Manhattan last night, and maybe that wasn't the plan. Can you elaborate on how that came about and why that was?
I'm not going to be able to get into any sort of operational details as to how he was taken into custody and when. He is in custody right now. He will be appearing in court later today.
Was there any discussion of him surrendering, given they claim he's cooperating?
I'm not going to be able to get into law enforcement tactics or operations. Well, I can't get into the charging decision. It is very meaningful to us that weapons were possessed, as we allege in the indictment. Part of the reason why this conduct was so pervasive and harmful was because victims and others didn't necessarily feel comfortable denying him his wishes, as we allege, because of the presence of firearms. I should leave it there.
Thanks. Last question, Jacob Shamison.
Jacob Shamsian, Business Insider. Thank you. Given that he's the sole defendant in this case and that you allege he's part of a conspiracy that involves members of his companies, do you anticipate a superseding indictment that bring allegations against other members of his companies or other co-conspirators as well?
I can't take anything off the table. Anything is possible. Our investigation is very active and ongoing. And I think a lot of you who cover this office know that when we say such things, that developments are certainly foreseeable, but I cannot predict them sitting here today. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, so you heard the U.S. attorney just talk about the fact that there was 1,000 bottles of that baby oil in them hotel rooms and things. So Diddy, wow. 1,000 bottles of baby oil. That's insane. That's what they allege they found at these particular raids or whatever, wherever they got there from. So that's crazy. But he did say something about the trafficking and the prostitution thing and the transportation of that, because a lot of people are thinking to themselves as well, like, what about this whole flued out culture? You know, is that technically trafficking? Is that technically, you know, transportation for, you know, I mean, what is it? What is that about? You know what I'm saying? How far are we going to go when it comes to that? So that's another thing to, I think, even though it sounds comical, but the fluid out culture might be participating in something like this, you know, to a certain degree, even if it is mutual. You know what I'm saying? Because if you solicit prostitution, even though the person is willing, it's still illegal here in the States. So, yeah. So that's something that was very, very interesting that he mentioned about trying to distinguish between the two, but he wasn't really giving out a lot of information. He wasn't giving out a lot of information when it comes to how he got arrested and how many other people are involved in the situation. You know, who else is involved when it comes to the trafficking and the soliciting and the coercion and the meetups and the, you know, the fraudulent nature of this case. Like, who else is involved? You know, it's not just him. Excuse me. So who else is it? And I'm pretty sure it's gonna be some celebrities, because, you know, Diddy did yell out some names one time, man, in front of that statue when he had that baby in his on his lap, and he called out Will Smith. He says a bunch of names, and so, hey, if he go down, man, he gonna take some people with him. But one of the things that was interesting about Mr. Williams is that he did mention about detention, and he want P. Diddy to be detained without a bond. So this is something that the defense offered a $50 million bond. Okay. It says the defense proposes the following bail package. Okay. This is the proposed package for bond. It's a $50 million bond co-signed by Sean Combs, his mother, his sister, his mother of his oldest daughter, and his 3 adult sons. Secured by the equity in Mr. Combs' residence located at, and redacted the address, the appraised value of the home is about $48 million. Okay, and then the home is unencumbered in anticipation of this bail hearing. On August 20th, 2024, Mr. Combs paid off the remaining mortgage of about $18 million so that the home could be used to secure a bond and be free of a mortgage. So it sounds like Diddy knew he was going to get arrested at some point, and he was just making arrangements at that point. Secured by the equity of Mr. Combs' mother's home located at redacted address. Also, it says here, Mr. Combs' travel will be restricted to the Southern District of Florida and the Southern District of New York to attend court, meet with his counsel, and attend medical appointments, which we will address to the court in a separate sealed submission, as well as the Eastern District of New York or the District of New Jersey, only to the extent, that his travel to and from New York involves an airport in those districts. Mr. Combs' passport would be surrendered, or was surrendered, to his counsel on April the 1st, 2024. His counsel advised the prosecutors of this fact in an email dated the same day. Counsel will provide this passport to pretrial services. And so the passports of the following family members who have already surrendered their passports to counsel after the raids on Mr. Combs' home is Janice Combs, Chance Combs, Jesse Combs, Delilah Combs, and Love Combs, which is basically Diddy. So there you have it right there. That is the bond offer. That's a part of the bond offer. I can find the full one, but that's a part of it. That's the meat and potatoes of what the offer is from Diddy and his counsel. So let me know what you think about this. I mean, that was a good question, I believe, in the press, where he said, if you knew this was going on for so long, how come you waited so long to finally do this? And a lot of times we confuse that time frame, because it's like, oh, if you knew what happened, then how come you just didn't go after him? Well, when it comes to court, it's about what you can prove. So maybe if they would have went after him early, they wouldn't be able to prove anything. So in order for a grand jury and you have an indictment from the grand jury and things like that, it sounds like you have a case. Well, it's supposed to go that way. You know, once the grand jury approves the fact, sanctions the indictment, it lets the courts know that there is a case here. Okay, there's actual evidence, there's actual testimony, you know, and things of that nature that can be implemented in a case. In this case, if it goes to a trial. However, we all know, on contrary to the YSL case, you know, they have an indictment, they did all this kind of stuff, and that indictment was a little bit like your boy Steele said. I think the indictment, you might want to look at this again, because the indictment might be false or incorrect. So, you know, or inartful, if you will. So when you do have an indictment like this, you definitely want to know, that, okay, you better have a case. And in this case, they do, you know. So they have evidence, they have pictures, photos, they have witnesses, they have all kind of people. And we don't know how long this will take place, but I'm going to definitely be keeping up on this. This is actually like, this day was going to happen at some point, you know. And so Diddy knew it, and everyone else knew it. And so this is where we at with it. But let me know what you think in the comments. Leave your comments down below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, man. I'm your boy Tay Biz, Biz Nation. Peace.